when my son was born, one of the thoughts that was troubling me was, what's my son going to say at school when he's asked, what's your dad do? He's a drunk driving defense attorney. And I didn't want that. I wanted to be what my kids now say, which is my dad helps people.
Today we've got Brad Koffel here, one of the best criminal defense attorneys in Ohio, voted best lawyers in America since 2005, hundreds of jury trials and suppression hearings, lawyer of the year, top 10 super lawyers, all around good guy and Ohio State fan. And also my twin
wife
today.
And kids could care less about all that stuff. Right.
Appreciate you being on the show today.
Glad to be here.
Did you grow up in Ohio?
I did, and I'm kind of surprised I'm still in Columbus, Ohio. I grew up in kind of in the east side of Columbus in the 70s. And my dad died when I was 9. He was 32. And my mom remarried, and we moved to a suburb of Columbus, Hilliard. And I went to Miami University in Oxford, Ohio for 4 years. And that's the only 4 years I've not lived in Columbus. So I've watched a lot of people leave and a lot of people come back to Columbus because Columbus is popping. It's a great city. And I'm thrilled to be raising my family there now, and I'm glad I'm where I am.
And big Ohio State fan, I assume?
Huge Ohio State fan. I haven't always been. I kind of grew into that after I graduated from law school. And when you're 25, 30 years old, you're single, you're professional in the community, and you're building a professional practice, you go to Ohio State tailgates. And so a small group of us bought a big bus, a 45-foot Prevost bus, marathon conversion package, had more granite in it than my house at the time. And so we used that for tailgating and hosting parties. And it was, that's really when I became a big Ohio State fan.
Talking before, you've said this thing where your early years were in color, kind of the middle years, black and white, and then you hit your stride and everything turned into 4K.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that specifically?
So we all have our life-altering events, and none of us are immune from tragedy and going through brutal times. And one of mine happened when I was 9, an only child, and my dad was my hero, and as every dad should be to his son, and I hope that I am to my son. But he died of a heart attack. He was only 32 years old. So after he died, from age 9 to 18, it was kind of a black and white movie when I look back on it. But I went to Miami University, and life got, it popped. It was, I fell right in with a great group of guys, had a phenomenal college experience, and really grew up then in college. I never partied in high school, too much of a nerd, but got that somewhat out of my system in college. And then to law school, life got a little bit better. And then after law school, it just has been great ever since. And my life is better than I deserve right now.
So when you lost your father at a young age, tell me, what impact did that have on you at that time and then through the rest of your life?
Well, the impact that it had on me is I discovered his record collection. And
where your love of records come from?
Love of music, vinyl. It's made me who I am. And I tell everybody, dude, I don't know why this happened to you in your life. I don't know why you got arrested and you're looking at prison, but you need to make some changes. And part of my unpacking that traumatic experience as a boy has empowered me to look directly at someone and to say, you'll be fine. You can fight it or you can embrace change.
Was law school during that black and white period, was that what you knew you wanted to do?
I thought for sure when I graduated from college that my personality, I was going to be in sales. And I thought for sure Procter & Gamble is going to hire me. Because they were hiring everybody at Miami University. And the only person that even offered me a position was May department stores. Last thing I wanted to do was sell shoes in a department store. So that was a quick no. Everyone else was graduating from college and had plans, and I didn't have any plans. And I thought, well, I'll just go to law school. Turned out to be a great decision. And then after law school, starting the practice was largely a byproduct of not getting really, really good grades in law school. I just didn't apply myself. I didn't have that work ethic when I was 22, 23, 24.
Most of us don't.
Yeah, I think you eventually learn that. But, everything happens for a reason, which is a motto I follow in my life.
So you didn't get good grades, so were you kind of...
I got good grades. I mean, I wasn't, when you go to a tier 2 or tier 3 law school, you're not going to get hired by the big law firms unless you're number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in your law school class. So graduating with a 3.3 or a 3.4 at a tier 2, tier 3 law school, you're going to go work in the public defender's office, you maybe go work in the prosecutor's office, or you're going to go down to what I did. I just went down to municipal court and just hustled cases.
Is that hustle what you would say got you from, tier 2 law school to the best in the country?
Fear of failure and an innate insecurity of being outshined in a courtroom. Because if you think about it, a lot of people don't have jobs where your competition is watching you perform. And so that fear of being outsmarted, outmaneuvered, that insecurity came back from my childhood. And I'm like, I refuse to be outsmarted and outmaneuvered. So now I hire smart people. I can't add brain cells.
That's right.
But I'll just hire smart people.
I know you spent a lot of time in the courtroom in the early years too, right?
A ton, yeah. The court reporters called me Awful Koffel. For 20 years, I was in the courtrooms every day from 9 to 2 or 3. I mean, it was just nonstop. And I didn't really know any better. I pled not guilty on every single case. I filed motions to suppress and dismiss on everything. If my client wrecked his car into a tree, I would still have to ask the officer, what exactly led you to think that my client was DUI? I challenged everything, and that worked out well. And you develop your own calling card on who you are as a trial lawyer.
And was criminal defense what you always knew you wanted to do in law school?
I knew I wanted to be in a courtroom. And when I was in law school, I worked. I've never not worked. I mean, even when I was in college, I was a bouncer for a while.
A bouncer?
A bouncer, yeah.
I would have never guessed that.
Thanks. Did that for a little while, washed dishes in a Mexican restaurant. And then when I was in law school, I worked retail. And then I got hired by then the president of the Ohio Academy of Trial Lawyers, who civil work, malpractice, wrongful death, personal injury. And so I became his driver, his caddy in the summers. I was with him all the time for 3 years, and I learned I want to be in a courtroom and I wanted to represent families. He would go to families, and these are people that suffer horrible loss, and he would go to their homes and meet them. And just that emotional connection that he naturally had struck me. I think I felt that because when I was a boy after Dad died, I was the recipient of that. And I know how much that fills you. And so that became my drug of choice. And it's been a hell of a drug of choice so far.
You always talk about how you take your clients and you turn them from a number in front of a judge or a prosecutor, right? And turn them into a real person. And you go in their homes, you create these packets about their life. Can you tell me a little bit about that? Because I think that's amazing.
If you ask anybody who's been arrested, do you feel like you're innocent right now? Do you feel the presumption of innocence? We've got Lady Justice right here. No one feels that. If you drive down the road and you see someone pulled over by a police officer, you don't think, oh, a police officer might have made a mistake. You think, I wonder what he did. And that's because, in my opinion, the presumption of innocence exists in law books only. The burden of proof really anymore is on the accused. Prove that you didn't do this. The prosecutor or the detectives or the judge have already prejudged. What I need to do, defense attorneys need to do, is to take that person and bring out the human side of them and be authentic about it. I deliberately stay away from plea negotiations until I have a full understanding of who my client is, and we'll use forensic psychological assessments to get kind of a working blueprint of the client. I always send them out to a therapist because they've got to deal with the situational depression and anxiety that they're going to face being prosecuted.
Mhm.
We open up to their family and let them know, hey, Dad's been humbled. He's down on his knees now. Dad needs to make some change. And when you have people who are deeply enmeshed in their alcohol or their drugs or their bad habits and they get arrested, they are in a perfect spot for another person to reach them and realize that you just got a signal from the universe that you're on the wrong path, so you need to make some changes. We'll deal with the inside of the courthouse. We'll do all the research and writing, work with our prosecutor friends, work with our judges. But the real heavy lifting is, what is your second act? And we have to be able to build and communicate that second act to the judges and prosecutors to have any shot of any favorable outcome. And clients that are willing to say, all right, I'm done with the first act and I'm willing to work forward on the second act, that's who I'm looking forward to, whether they're 17 or 67.
So for you, it's not all just about the verdict for these people. It's actually, changing their life from here forward.
It is, and it really started with drunk driving. When my son was born, one of the thoughts that was troubling me was, what's my son gonna say at school when he's asked, what's your dad do? And he's a drunk driving defense attorney, and I didn't want that. I wanted to be what my kids now say, is my dad helps people. So we're very, very, very proactive on getting clients to realize that that crack that you feel, that's when that light comes in and that's where change happens. And so, yeah, you got cracked. So now let the light in. Don't try to hide it.
Right.
Let it out.
Along those lines, you just had a huge case. National media. I mean, I'm going to ESPN to check scores, and there's, Brad Koffel tweets.
That was wild. Wild ride.
So you're representing the wide receiver coach of Ohio State that then ropes everything in. We're talking about the legendary Urban Meyer, right? And the athletic director of Ohio State. They get suspended for 3 weeks. What's that like to be in the middle of that storm?
Well, I never fully appreciated the gravitational pull that Urban Meyer has.
Mm-hmm.
And I heard this a few weeks ago, that Urban Meyer is the number 6 most searched name on Google in 2018. So that gravitational pull, coupled with social media, was a mind bender because things happen so quickly. I was in Boston. I'd taken my son to Boston to see the Red Sox play the Yankees. And 6 o'clock news, ESPN's on, and there's my name with my quote that I tweeted out from the plane about 2 hours earlier. And then it's followed up with Urban Meyer's being suspended. And I thought, oh my God, I'm gonna have to move. Because
that's Ohio.
Right, I'm gonna have to move. Did anything that my client did trigger Urban Meyer getting suspended? And yes. And then I talked to Zach Smith and I said, what exactly is the truth? Because what I'm hearing is not what you've told me. He goes, the truth is everything I've told you. I never did anything that they're saying I did towards my ex-wife. Urban Meyer didn't know anything. And I said, well, then we need to go on ESPN and set the record straight, because otherwise you're about to be the most hated person in Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the beginning of it all. And it just kept piling on.
It did.
And I learned the power of social media, which is stay off of it.
So it was entertaining to watch.
My friends would reach out to me and say, hey, Koffel, how you doing? Looks like you're getting beat up. And I'm like, are you kidding me? This is the World Series. This is fantastic.
So were you, you were digging it? You were loving it?
I loved every minute.
Every minute.
It was energizing because it was so fast paced. Mm-hmm. And after 25 years of practicing criminal law, to get hooked up to a satellite that moves that fast was a thrill. And I knew it was going to last about 30 to 45 days. So
that led you to another very, very recent kind of high-profile case involving the Neff Boys.
The Neff Boys.
I have to say, I didn't know who they were until it kind of popped up and started seeing all this activity online. And then you said, hey, go look them up. And I look them up. These guys got like 3 million followers, you know? So they got a big following.
They do, yeah. They're growing. They're Canadian-based. They're just building here in the States. They did a prank down in Columbus that I thought was very, very clever. No one should have thought it was real.
Do you guys know if you have like a how to not get caught for a murder section?
Oh my God.
Or anything like that?
8 cruisers, 3 police departments. One of the guys being hauled away in handcuffs.
Yeah.
It just goes to show that somebody's always offended someone. So, Mr. Sebastiani and his
Snowflake and I'll stop.
Little Koffel one-liner there in court, in front of the judge.
A little snark, yeah. There's some snark.
To which all the YouTube commenters are calling you savage.
Savage, I don't even know what that means.
Savage. Is that lawyer savage?
Savage. Butte. The boys say I'm a butte. Whatever, a butte. A butte.
Okay.
It's the Canadian
I had to look up
adjective.
a little bit of terminology too with some of the stuff that they say, you know.
Brad dropped Snowflake in aisle 7. Snowflake in aisle 7.
Snowflake and I'll 7.
You've really now evolved your practice and your career into helping young people. Tell me a little bit about that. Why did you do that? Why is
Yeah.
that important to you?
I really got involved with the opiate epidemic when it hit Columbus in '09. And I had one of the very first heroin-related crimes involving your then non-typical heroin user. It was a kid from our high school where my kids go to school, Upper Arlington High School. And he just graduated, and some marijuana that he bought had been laced with heroin. And he was quickly hooked. And he was kicked out of his house. He was persona non grata in his family. He was couch surfing. And then his dealer picked him up one day and said, I can, get you your next hit, but you got to go into that ice cream store right there and steal money out of the register. His cravings were so strong. He wound up robbing 5 places in 24 hours. And I was blown away. I'm like, wait a suburban kid using heroin.
Mm-hmm.
And so he really clued me in. And then I clued in our local police department. We cooperated fully. The community raised money for him to go to rehab. And we had a very, very fair judge, a wonderful judge, Judge David Feiss, and a wonderful prosecutor who was in his last year before he retired. My client was looking at 15 years, 3 years per robbery, and he did 1 year. And when he got out after serving his year, he's cleaned up his act, he's done his year in prison, he's gonna go on and be a productive member of society. And as he's walking from the jail to the parking lot where his mom was waiting for him, ICE snagged him because he was born in Toronto and his family moved to the States when he was 6 months old. And he was deported. And he's not allowed back in the country because of his aggravated robberies. My nephew Christopher died of a heroin overdose. That rocked our world. He was like a son. That was really brutal. You can't not but want to help. You just can't. It doesn't matter if you're a lawyer or anything else, you want to help. The pain that you'd see these moms go through and the dads and their sons and daughters who were dying, literally dying. And I've gone to too many funerals. I went to our drug court judge in Franklin County, Scott Vanderkar, wonderful man. And I said, dude, we gotta do something because this is mowing down suburban kids. And we gotta do something. So he quit the bench. He came to work for us. And we built out a practice group called Preventative Law, where families that were dealing with the kid who was an addict, where they just couldn't quite get their hands on him to get him into rehab. We figured out a way, we put a little model together where the parents could hire us and we could set these little traps, get the kid arrested on some low-level charge, hold him there for 10 days, get him dope-free, and then hit him with Vivitrol, which is an opiate antagonist. And then from there, get them to rehab until the opiate receptor sites dry up and they get their original neural pathways coming back. That was my segue into my next practice group, which is what I'm really focusing on right now and I have for a few years, are these high school and college kids and sex. Sexting and non-consensual sex, date rape, and there's an explosion.
What drew you to that?
The inequities of the system. I have a client right now who got a 2-year commitment to the Department of Youth Services. He recorded a sex act with his girlfriend, consensual sex act. They were both of age, which is 16 in Ohio. The act itself, totally legal. Recording it on his phone is creating child pornography. And he got busted. Dad refused to give up the passcode to son's iPhone. And you can't get into iPhones.
Right.
And so they charged my client with attempted tampering of evidence because he wouldn't give up evidence against himself,
Right.
which is total BS.
Yeah.
So he gets the F3 attempted tampering, creating child pornography, and it went to trial. I didn't represent him at the trial level. No video was ever introduced in evidence, and the judge found him guilty of creating child pornography. He is a convicted sex offender, and the judge sent him away for 2 years to Department of Youth Services.
Yeah, and then he's going to have to register, right, for the rest of his life too.
20 years. So the better part of his, who's gonna hire a convicted sex offender?
Right.
Who wants to date a convicted sex offender? Who wants to marry a convicted sex offender? This kid had never been suspended, never had a detention, and was 16. And the way the laws are being applied in juvenile courts are wrong. We just got a large chunk of that case reversed last month. And that type of inequity drives me crazy. Someone's got to get in there and battle for that.
Is this what makes Koffel tick?
I don't know where it comes from, but there's a fight inside there, a drive. And I've got an acute sense of justice and right and wrong. I'm fascinated by philosophy, spirituality, psychology, what makes people tick. And America's spiritually bankrupt. I mean, we have such wealth, and it interferes with spirituality. We all know that some of the happiest countries in the world are the happiest people because they don't have stuff that they idolize. And Americans, we're a young country. We've only been at this wealth thing for about 70 years, 60 years. We'll figure it out. But right now, there's a lot of casualties of affluenza. And sometimes they go to psychologists, sometimes they come to defense attorneys. I love it when they come to me.
Makes sense. And you see this, you got a radio show going.
Yeah,
as well.
It's my hobby.
Yeah.
It's my only hobby. It's called For the Defense. It's on 610 WTVN on Sunday mornings. It's one of the largest AM radio stations in Ohio. And it is an hour of kind of recapping what's happened in America, from politics, arrests, movies, sports, but then just bringing it in and into the show and talking about it. And it's a fun release for me as well.
So what's next for Brad Koffel?
I've been doing this for 25 years. I'm going to add 2 partners to the Koffel law firm. So we're going to be Koffel Brininger Nesbitt, KBN. I think I'm going to continue to move my personal practice away from the law firm, building a private office down the Arena District. I'm planning on having just fewer clients, more one-on-one relationships, give prospective clients the options to have, the one-on-one relationship with me, or can work with one of my partners, or can work with some of our associates. So I think there's a need in Columbus for just an even higher level of representation with people that are under indictment or being prosecuted.
Well, I really want to thank you for coming out today, sharing all this with me.
I'm flattered and humbled to be here and be invited out and to be taken care of like you guys do.
Well, we're also flattered and humbled to have clients like you guys. It makes working hard for you a lot easier when you actually genuinely care about your client.
You're right. I agree with you 100%.
So we appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.